One of my favorite Pravasi Bharatiya is Mahatma Gandhi. It's not just about PPP calculations.
Hope is a very important thing. And when you move abroad, it is hope. Ships are also safe at the harbor, but that is not where ships are supposed to be. Why every Indian should work abroad at least once in his life. There's a very interesting, recent, disturbing trend that I am witnessing by a lot of influencers who are talking down working abroad based on very incomplete information around purchase power parity. I recently wrote a post about it on LinkedIn which went viral, and I thought that this entire topic deserves much more attention, much more debate, much more healthy discussion, so that anyone who is watching my channel at least able to take much more holistic decision whenever you get an opportunity of working abroad, so you're not just thinking from a very siloed point of view, which is of PPP. And if you're new to my channel, interestingly, I talk about all things careers, all things MBA, and all things management consulting. So feel free to hit on the subscribe and the notification button so that you are notified whenever I'm on a chai break with you, doing cheers with you on chai. And with that, let's get started. Very excited to once again have Naman Srivastav with me. Last time when we got Naman, a lot of you were excited and you wanted him again on my channel. So Naman is doing cheers with me on chai. And I hope you're doing the cheers with all of us. So Naman, we have been behind the camera having a lot of discussions, a lot of concern how this entire influencer culture can just build very false argument or very half-cooked argument, and a lot of youngsters who are very gullible, parents of these youngsters who are very gullible might fall trap to those arguments, right? So you and I, we both have worked abroad. I've worked in Dubai, I've lived in US. You have studied abroad as well. You are working abroad as well. So let's start with a working conditions comparison. And in this video, we have 4-5 sections. And on those 4-5 sections, including PPP, we are going to be a comparison of working abroad from both Naman's point of view and my point of view. And watch till the end so that you get to take a very holistic decision whether you should be working abroad, what are the other learnings that you can anticipate, and not just think from PPP point of view. So Naman, welcome to my channel once again. And do you have any initial remarks before we get started?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on this channel. And you have a wonderful base of ardent followers who are some of the most genuinely the kindest people that I have had a chance to interact with in the past, and I look forward to being part of your journey and ensuring that they succeed and thrive in whatever they're doing. So I'll try my best to be as honest, as brutally honest as possible with this session. Off to you, and feel free to drive it the way you would want.
Sure. So Naman, I have 4-5 points of consideration when someone can get an offer of working abroad, whether they should consider it or not. And if I were to also take a step back, I kind of worry if people also are curious what kind of salaries do you get abroad. People are also concerned. People are also thinking about whether that salary is going to be justifiable to live abroad. People are also thinking what kind of life can you imagine for yourself when you're living abroad. So all those questions we are going to be discussing in a raw, unfiltered format, as both of us have had our respective careers both in India and in abroad as well. What are the pros? What are the cons? So the larger objective in this podcast is to debate in a healthy fashion, and we of course look forward to hearing your views as well. So let's start with working conditions. So when you work abroad, what does your work life really look like? What do you really learn, and what could be the challenges involved, let's say comparatively to your career in India?
I think it's a good question, but what I've realized is the world has globalized, and therefore the differences that might have existed, let's say 10 years, 20 years ago, that may not be the case today. And my experience has largely been in international organizations, and now with an organization that's through which I'm working very closely with the leadership of various Eastern European countries. So I think it's very similar to what you would have in India. The only distinguishing factor is that, especially in my case, I've I've had I've had an incredible opportunity to work with people who are not just from Kenya or from India or from the US. I'm speaking to people who are from Pakistan to Japan to South Africa, and therefore I'm able to appreciate various facets of life, not just from a monolithic standpoint, but from various multiple sectoral standpoint. And it has allowed me to develop a lot of empathy. And if anyone wants to become a good leader in future, empathy plays a critical role, and you can develop that level of empathy if and only if you have had the experience of dealing with people from multiple locations, multiple geographies, multiple perspectives. So from that standpoint, working abroad has been distinguishing factor in terms of coming across a lot of people. But from the very core, I don't think there's much difference versus working abroad or working in India. What are your thoughts and views based on your experiences in management consulting?
Thank you so much, Naman. So, a little bit of context about myself for those of you who don't know. I left BCG India New Delhi office in early 2021, and I was given an offer to join an international affairs firm in Dubai. And they matched a BCG consultant salary in Dubai and gave me, in fact, a raise over and above that. And there were a lot of people who in my circle felt that even that salary is going to fall less because of purchase power parity. Many people, in fact, if I were to quote, said could be peanuts in Dubai as well, because it was a management consulting role. I was living in hotels on many weekdays and coming back home on weekend. And of course, that means that when you are on the client side, your expenses are also taken care of. I do understand that many people may not be in that scenario, but at least in my Dubai stint, I was able to save a lot. All my salary, in fact, went to my savings. All my expenses, I always kept them to bare minimal. But that's just not for Dubai. When I was in US and taking care of our venture together, that means that my salary was now this time not benchmarked the US standards. This time I was able to live, work and manage my life beautifully well, and this time again I was able to save. Now when it comes to my experiences with the work lifestyle, Naman, you have worked in United Nations, you're working with Eastern European governments as well. When I went to Dubai to work in an international ecosystem for the first time, I think what really stood out was when I was working BCG, when I was working Government of India, it was fairly homogeneous crowd. Perhaps coming at BCG, most of them were from IIMs, really creamy layer. A lot of them are intellectual nerds, the top of their ecosystems, and you really like working in such ecosystems because you're challenged every day. But fairly homogeneous in terms of gender, in terms of organization, academic institute, and a way of thinking as well. Highly left-brainy people. When I went to join International Affair Organization, I was working with the German, there was a Pakistani on my team, my boss was actually a Brit, and there was an American from Yale University as well. And I found that what ticks someone is very different than what ticks someone else. How do you really speak up in such meetings where someone could be louder and more aggressive than you, right? And those are really life skills to have. Now, one could argue that, Shatakshi, you can get same level of diversity in India as well, which I don't doubt. India is also an amalgamation of nations in itself. But when you're in an uncomfortable zone, literally when you're an immigrant, right, you are perhaps on a sophisticated visa as an immigrant, you're not a refugee, the work life that you anticipate is really very different. It can help you to empathize a little more, it can make you more accommodating, and in that process I learned how to become a better version of myself. And a lot of those learnings, I apply them very often as I work closely with my team members at GG. I told you, right? Working with a particular 2-3 people in international affairs organization from different nationalities made me a better leader because I learned different types of leadership skills, which were perhaps very interestingly not seen by me, at least when I was working in India. So that's my response. So, which brings us towards the second question, which is the most heated up perhaps, purchase power parity. A lot of people say that, in fact, I made a video where I was saying that, hey, I earned a crore in Dubai because that is what my equivalent salary was. Today with the USD, I was earning in dollars for those of you who don't know. And with the comparison today, it will stand more than a crore. And there were few of you who said that, hey, that's peanuts in Dubai because from PPP standard, right? And I do understand not everyone gets management consulting job offers. What's your view on this entire PPP narrative because of which people are legitimately saying don't go work abroad?
Okay, I think great question. The PPP argument has many economic flaws, and I'll delve deeper into it. But before I answer that, I think it's also important to underline this point that life and experiences are beyond PPP. I don't know if how many of you have heard of Kunal Behel, the founder of Snapdeal. He went to the US, worked there, and came back to India and started Snapdeal. There is Ashish Dhawan that we both of us look up to for the work that he has done in India, founding Ashoka University and Center Square Foundation, with which GGI has also collaborated and partnered. He studied in the US and worked in the US and came back to India and has been doing incredible work in India. Pramod Sinha has revolutionized education space, and even he worked in the US for some time. So you get the experience the world, and after experiencing the world, you are coming back and giving a lot back to India. So if they had thought only from the PPP standpoint, I don't think they would have been able to do justice to what India has gained because of their experiences. And we have Sundar Pichai, we have Satya Nadella, we have Indra Nui. I'm so glad that they did not listen to these influences. So that argument is flawed, and I'll be brutally honest, because it is ludicrous that many youngsters get influenced by this, and unfortunately many parents pay heed to this. This needs to stop, and if you look at these influencers who have been promulgating such views, just ask them, where did they work? And for how many years did they work? But I don't think they have a substantial career working abroad, because working abroad teaches you many life skills that will allow you to experience the world and bring the best bits to India. What's wrong with that? And in terms of PPP, how much of taxes did you pay in Dubai? If you were earning in crore, what was the tax structure like? Because we have to account for tax structure. We have to account for the core of PPP would be how much of living expenses, how much of your salary goes into buying the accommodation, because most of it is taken care of by a consulting organization that you worked with. That may not be the case in many organizations, but I think PPP argument is flawed. Living in Mumbai, in some parts of Delhi, is equivalent to living in Boston, in some parts of Boston. And I'm sure I've lived in both the parts of the world, so I can talk about it. So these are my views, very controversial, but I'm being brutally honest here. I hope when you take a decision, you take the decision in entirety, and not just by looking at one basic parameter being used by certain influencers to narrate and talk about one point. So experience the world. Don't starve your soul from experiencing the world. And I'm sure it will be an incredible learning opportunity. You will be uncomfortable, you will be stressed, but you will definitely learn a lot in that journey. What are your thoughts? What do you think?
I think you have already answered a lot of next coming up section questions that I had, but happy to touch upon my views. I think you already kind of talked about life skills. Happy to add my perspective on that. But right off the bat, talking about BPP, I completely agree. My house in Boston when I was studying abroad in 2019 costed the same as much as you would want to afford it in Mumbai, right? I could have afforded a cheaper housing in Boston and it could have landed what I was paying in Delhi. That means that it is pretty hard for you to compare apples to apples. There will be PPP calculators mindlessly giving average answers, but your lifestyle, you could have a lavish bungalow in Boston, you could have a lavish bungalow in Mumbai and live on meager means in Boston. It is not logical for you to make comparison, as you rightfully mentioned. Even Dubai, for that matter, is a pretty big city. There are multiple areas. A few areas are just facing Burj Khalifa. Of course, it will be your pocket will have a hole if you start affording a housing there versus other places. So that's point number one. Point number two, I completely agree. Our entire generation is missing out of the fact, and I think that is where we need to come outside of the pandemic mindset. We are not living in pandemic anymore. We should not be stuck in homes anymore, right? That means that the world has opened. That means that, and we need to understand that living a life of an immigrant has a beauty in itself when you live on less means, right? Of course, this argument can also be applied if you're moving from a village to a new city. But when that nation is not yours, when you are in a very uncomfortable zone, when you're learning a new language, right? In Dubai, for example, I had to go through so much trouble at multiple stores where I just couldn't speak. Similarly, we are in Serbia right now. We are just managing the language here as well. In US, of course, English is very much spoken. I've been to Mexico, not for work purposes, but I was largely working there for a very long period of time, and I had my own set of challenges. Making friends, because you cannot live alone. We are Homo sapiens. We are supposed to live in village. We are supposed to have a social circle. Just having life skills, managing your life in itself, teaches you so much more shit than what you can learn on YouTube from your home. I know that there is a contrarian view here. You're watching this on YouTube, but if you get a job offer which is by PPP standard also is giving you a little less, it's okay if you're not even saving a penny, but you come back with so much experiences, so much good network, so much better mindset, because of which you will be able to advance and leapfrog in your career. And Naman, taking your argument forward, Matrix Partner CEO right now, in Mobi CEO right now, there's so many more countless people. Our friends from Harvard who worked in US are now coming back and serving India better. I am serving India right now while working from abroad. Naman is serving India while working from abroad. The larger point is, PPP argument is not done apples to apples, and there is so much more life skill that you can learn when you are 24 or 25, when you are living in someone else's country by being an immigrant. And of course, in many scenarios, you might not be able to have the salary. I really wish that you can land in a situation where I was in Dubai, where I was well taken care of, but not in US, right? Which brings us towards the next section, Naman, in this comparison, brain drain. A lot of people can make an argument that, hey, Shatakshi, Naman, you're trying to make a very bad propaganda, which is that Indians should just work abroad, right? Which is a brain drain problem. Our country is struggling from it. Satya Nadella, you quoted, and Sundar Pichai, and you have had your own set of views that they are, interestingly, not just Indians, but not even having Indian passports, right? So, what are your views on people who go and work abroad and not just want to come back?
I'll talk about both the issues. One of my favorite Pravasi Bharatiya is Mahatma Gandhi. He went to South Africa. He worked in South Africa for some time, came back to India, and I think he did a lot for India. So, starting with that Pravasi Bharati, on whose, when he came to India, based on his day when he came to India, the entire Pravasi Bharati Divas is celebrated. There are many Indians who have contributed immensely to the growth story of India while being abroad. I don't think there is any reason to take a false pride in celebrating Indians who have changed their passports, who have changed their citizenship. It happened because of innumerable reasons. It happened because of probably better opportunities abroad, but now India is dramatically changing, and India is a growth story, and I'll definitely be coming back to India, like millions of others who have done the same and have ensured and contributed to India's growth story. And I think you've already mentioned to some extent about look at any politician. Two politicians that come to my mind today who are doing tremendously well in India are Shashi Tharoor and our foreign minister S. Jaishankar. S. Jaishankar is doing so well because of his experiences in the foreign services, be it in China, be it in the US, be it elsewhere. Shashi Tharoor went in and joined the UN, and he brought in those experiences when he's running his constituency in Thiruvananthapuram. So I would just reiterate your points. It's not just about PPP calculations. If these folks were to calculate and live their life based on PPPs, they would be making Instagram videos. And I'm so glad that they did not do that. So I hope this answers your question. And if I were to ask you the same question, what would be your thoughts?
I live for India. I pay my taxes for India. I work for India. It's a personal choice. If you go abroad and you like working abroad, you can stay there. But we are seeing this new emerging trend as well, where a lot of smart Indians who are studying at Stanford, Wharton, and even Harvard are coming back to India after working for some years, paying off their debt, which is where a new good emerging India can take place. And we need to understand that working abroad for India is actually a much more macroeconomically good for India, because people learn, they see new way of life, new way of running businesses, new way of innovations. Of course, you can learn that through the Jugaad method also in India, but it is like really immersing into a new culture, right? When you work abroad, you can come back with a lot more new energy, lot more excitement, and contribute to the India story much more better. So I'm completely aligned. I loved the example of Mahatma Gandhi. There are other examples of Satya Nadella as well, and all respect to him and all respect to, of course, Gandhi ji as well. You find your own answer. But if we were to take a step back in this video, Naman and I are honored to have a realization. We have some voice of our own on social media. We genuinely felt disturbed, we felt disappointed, to say the least, that unfortunately there are influencers who are making YouTube videos and just Instagram videos who have unfortunately perhaps never worked outside of India, or who are stuck in their location, are influencing gazillion of Indians and gullible parents. In plain simple language, I don't know if this offends someone, but it is regressive. You would want your generation to go out, you would want new India to go out, experience the world, come back and contribute to that nation. I am an avid reader and a believer that biology defines our behaviors. We are Homo sapiens, we are not stuck trees. That means that we are supposed to move around. Hope is a very important thing. And when you move abroad, it is hope. If you have it, you will be able to have the courage to move abroad. If you don't have hope, unfortunately, you will be stuck in that PPP game. And trust me, life is much more than a mathematical Excel. Life is much more than living inside comfortable homes as well. Have hope. Know that I said this on my LinkedIn post as well, that ships are also safe at the harbor, but that is not where ships are supposed to be. Those are last views of mine, Naman. Happy to hear from you if you have last comments before we wrap up.
I think I totally concur with your views on this aspect, and most importantly about the last analogy about the ships. So I think these are our views. Can be controversial, could be laced with a lot of biases. Same has been the case with Instagram influencers who have their own confirmation biases. But our views are based on the experiences of having lived both in India and having worked across geographies in Europe and in the US. And I hope this assuages many of your concerns. And especially after this discussion, I am thoroughly convinced that especially within GGI, we are going to create a segment where we will ensure that many of our fellows and scholars, they get to experience the working abroad internships and working abroad style, so that they also get to experience their the world outside. They can implement and implement the theories that they learn at GGI in a foreign world, and then come back and contribute back to India. So this has definitely opened up a good channel for GGINs who we will ensure will take up positions across the globe. So thank you so much for inviting me, and I wish you all the very best to all the viewers. Take care, stay safe, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Naman. It's always a pleasure to have you on my channel. And like always, if you like being on a chai break with me, then feel free to give it a thumbs up and let us know of more interesting conundrum related topics that you might have. Naman and I have always believed in giving unbiased, transparent views to all of you, and we look forward to doing that to the young India. I never had the kind of advice that we are able to provide to a lot of people absolutely free of cost on our YouTube channel. Happy to give back again, and thank you so much for staying tuned and for all the trust that you put in us. Ciao, we'll see you soon.